Hello, hello, it's Rachel here with Things We Wear, and today we're going to pick up where we left off with making this t-shirt pattern, this women's t-shirt pattern block. And as I said at the end of my last video, I'm going to be selling this block on my Etsy shop if you'd like to purchase it. I'm also going to be grading it, so you could also purchase the graded file, or I'll be selling each size individually, and I'll be fitting each one on an avatar in clothes so we can cross-check fit and just figure out what is working best for each of those sizes, and hopefully come to a really good place. This might be a long video series because of what I want to do with it and because I want it to be a good pattern block. So bear with me. It'll be in half-hour, 45-minute chunks because I am also a working person. So, trying to fit this in where I can. But I would like to say the reason, I was thinking like, people often dismiss t-shirt pattern making or the importance of putting a lot of time into t-shirts. The reality is we wear t-shirts all the time, and we all know the difference between a really great t-shirt and a not really great t-shirt. And the not really great t-shirt is the one that you end up donating and the one that ends up in trash piles. But the really great t-shirt is the one that you love and reminds you of that happy thing that you did in it, that summer vacation that you took. Whatever it is that you love about that t-shirt, the way it feels, the way it makes you feel, the memory that you have associated with it. Those are things that really, for me, get globbed onto t-shirts a lot. I really love t-shirts, and I love graphic t-shirts for that reason, because they're comfortable. You can wear them throughout the year, spring, summer, fall, and they can have a really cool graphic that reminds you of something I saw or did or felt at a time, and it just kind of is like that nice, like, oh yeah, I remember when I went to Paris with my family, or remember when I did that thing that I was scared to do, but I did it anyway. I think that clothing can really be not only a expression to the world, but sort of a self-actualization, a self-reminder of what it is we want to continue to be every day. And I think a t-shirt is a great conveyor of that. So without further ado, let's figure out where we were last time. Okay, so I pulled up my notes from last time, and we were going through the pattern and measuring it and comparing it to our graded spec page, which is here. And I believe we stopped at the armhole. So we had armhole straight measured. I marked anything that was measured in green, and then red is TBD still. So we'll work our way through. I believe we stopped at trying to make sure that the armhole and the sleeve cap length matched. So let's figure that out. All right, so if I haven't already showed you this tool in Tookatek, they have this cool measurement tool. Something similar like it exists in Optitex, not quite the same. I know that AccuMark also has something, but I never use it. I usually just use the grade measure line function, which basically allows you to select multiple lines and then come up with a total measurement, and then you can compare that to another line. It's a really wonderful tool. I sorely miss it, but I'm getting used to Tookatek. So the way it works in Tookatek is you can basically measure you select a point that begins a segment. So you can see this is one long segment line that I have not divided. So my back is 10.059 and my front is 9.663, so 9 5/8 and 10 1/16. So the way I'm going to add those up is I'm going to write armhole dash measure dash, and then I'm going to say half, because this is a mirrored piece. So if I didn't write the H for half, you would end up with a total measurement. I do have a little screenshot of how this works. Let me find it. Okay, well, I can't seem to find it. I know I have it somewhere, but basically it's just a little shortcut explaining how the measurement tool works. So I'll try to find it, and I can do an episode all about it. I feel like I'm kind of mediocre at it. I use it to help myself, but I don't know that I'm an expert level, but I hope to get there. Okay, so here we go, armhole. So we have the front armhole and the back. You want to label it exactly the same way, and then that way when you see the measurement, it adds it together. So these two are being measured. Now I want to measure my sleeve cap. So sleeve cap measurement, quantity 1. The reason I would say quantity 1 is because this is a pattern piece that has a quantity of 2 total. So I need to specify, I just want 1 sleeve cap. Now I go to report, measurements, and here's my armhole, here's my sleeve cap. So my armhole is a total of 19, and my sleeve cap is a total of 17, basically 2-inch difference, way too much difference. I will say in general, I find for knits, I want to have anywhere between 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch difference between my sleeve cap and my armhole. And specifically, I want my sleeve cap to be smaller than my armhole. So why is that? Okay, basically, when you add seam allowance on here, the seam allowance on the armhole actually makes the armhole get smaller, right? Because it's coming in. This is a concave shape. And the sleeve cap is a convex shape. So as you add seam allowance, it's actually making this length longer. I know that the sew line is going to match, but the seam allowance end line is going to be longer on the sleeve cap, shorter on the armhole. So what happens if your sleeve cap is the same even as the armhole? The net result is it looks like it's bigger because you have this excess of fabric when you sew it, and it causes that puckered, kind of like not very clean look at your armhole that is not what anybody wants. So I find making my sleeve cap about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch smaller usually just makes it look a bit cleaner. It also can help reduce the excess of fabric in the front lower armhole range. And the reason you would want a reduction is, let's say this was a woven style or a knit style, but you had a dart. That dart, the point of the dart is basically to remove excess fabric from that front armhole. Although you can pivot the dart and put it, down here or into the neck, wherever it is you have it. The point is to reduce that folding of fabric that happens near our front armhole. And if you have a boxy t-shirt, you know what I'm talking about. You put it on, you put your arm down, and you have this excess right at your lower front armhole. So if we take the sleeve and make it, let's say 3/8 smaller in the part that aligns with this lower front armhole, we're going to help suck in that fold of fabric and maybe help control it. It's not magic. It's only 3/8. I'm not saying that it's going to do miracles, but every little thing helps, and whatever you can do to make your t-shirt fit better, that's what you want to do. All right, so our sleeve cap is way too small. So now let's look at what we're supposed to be doing for sleeve opening. Sleeve, we have a bicep of 6 1/4, sleeve opening 5 7/8, and that is on spec there. Let me see how my bicep is looking. So if bicep is typically measured 1 inch below the armhole, because when you think about the fattier part of your arm or the fuller part, it's not right at your underarm point. It's actually kind of like a little bit lower. 1 inch maybe isn't even necessarily the fullest part. Maybe the fullest part is 2 inches. But, I think in general with measurements, it's just a tool to measure. So I wouldn't take anything as like a hard and fast rule. It really depends on the body type. Like if you're making garments for people who are super built up, you might have to adjust where you're measuring because you want to measure for that person at their fullest point. And someone who's super built, their fullest point on their arm might be a bit lower down. But for maybe a normal person like me, I wish I was more built up, but I think that my arm is probably less volatile in measurement than maybe someone who is more built up. So it's kind of like, is there a difference between my mid arm and my quote unquote bicep area? I don't know. All right, so I'm going to click on this line and hold Alt. And what I want is 1 inch here. Sure, I can add a point. And then Alt and previous 1 inch. Uh-oh, I did that wrong. Okay, let's try that again. Alt. It's actually going to be the next. There we go. And in this case, the previous one. Cool. All right, so now we have that. And if I double click on that, I'm going to say bicep, measure, quantity 1. Okay. And measurements. So now I can see my bicep is 6 inches, which is a little bit small. So we needed 1/4 inch bigger. So that gives us license. I really like this multi-move tool, the V. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna move even way up here on the sleeve cap. And I'm gonna make it grow 1/4 inch in the Y direction. And the same for here. There we go. Okay, now you'll see what happened is we made our underarm seam look a little funky. So we're gonna fix that. And here's how we're gonna fix it. So now we have the bicep of 12 and 3. Is that really enough? We want it to be 6. Okay, so we actually need about a 1/16 more. So let's do that. 0.0625 and minus 0.0625. So as a pattern maker working in the AutoCAD program, I'm always thinking about X and Y direction. So minus, plus, like if you're going up this way, that's the plus, minus, and then you have to remember what axis you're working on and in what direction. That's really key to being able to kind of quickly plug in those numbers. And you get good at the 16ths of a measurements. If you're working in US, then you have to work in measurements or in inches. I know in other parts of the world, you get to use metric systems. So this maybe doesn't always make sense to you, but that's not too different. Okay, so now we have a bicep that's 12.45. That's about 6 1/4. Okay, so I'm feeling good about this measurement. So we can color that green. And what about this one? So right now our sleeve opening is 11.75. If you don't want to do the math, equals 11.75 divided by 2, 5.875. Cool. So this works. So now we need sleeve length from shoulder, and this might help inform what we want for our cap height as well. Okay. So from a purely to talk about cap height, the beginning of cap height is if your arm is fully down and at rest and you want no drag lines, then you could say that you want your cap height to be the same as your armhole height, right? Because you want that sleeve to fit perfectly into your armhole, and you want that to be the same. The reality is really hard to achieve that because let's say you want the bicep to be wider, now you're increasing your cap length. So it's really difficult actually to have a sleeve cap height that is ever as high as maybe you think it should be, because of course you're trying to bring all these pieces together. You need it to measure, you need this line to measure a certain measurement, you need the bicep to measure a certain measurement, and that's going to inform everything else, right? So that is one of the challenges. I'm going to measure this cap height, and so this cap height is 5.5. That's actually, I would say that's pretty good. I like to see some cap height as in the 5s for my women's small, medium. It really depends on what you're doing this for. 5.5 is gonna be a pretty clean sleeve. It's not gonna be totally clean, but it's definitely gonna be a little more on the cleaner side as far as when your arm is down, it'll be cleaner. But when you raise your arm, you might have that excess fabric. As you raise your arm, you're gonna have a little bit of excess at the top of the armhole. So one thing to think about. Okay, so we know that that's 5.5 right now, and we know it needs to be a little bit bigger. Here's what I'm gonna let inform my decision. So see how this angle? All right, so I'm gonna draw a line from here. No, I don't really need a point connection. And I'm gonna have it intersect there. There we go. Okay, let's do that again here. And there. Interesting that this is really different there. I don't know why. That's funny. Maybe my sleeve isn't super symmetrical, so that's something we need to address as well. I'm gonna press save because you always want to save. Now let's fold the sleeve and see how it's looking. So I'm gonna do fold in, and if I press Alt, whoops. If I press Alt, I can select 2 points. Fold. Oops. Okay, yeah, so something funky is going on with the sleeve opening. It's not quite matching. I don't know why. So maybe I messed this up as I was expanding, and maybe I grabbed Okay, so I'm going to actually even out the sleeve cap opening, or I'm sorry, the sleeve opening. We press Alt first, select this point, then that point. Okay, now I'm going to even out these guys. There we go. Oops. So I'm just gonna, this one I'm gonna kind of eyeball, but I'm gonna go about halfway in between. No, I don't want a snap point. All right, so now, let's see. Almost there. Why isn't it? For some reason it's not. I think it's the drawn line. It's the drawn on line 2 as well. So fold out. Now I'm going to select the mirror line. There we go. Uh-oh, I accidentally, something weird happened. Okay, let's go back to this. All right, first I'm gonna delete those yellow internal lines because I think that was throwing it off. Okay, now I can fold in. And now I can move these points to match. Oops, I want this one, Q. Nope. And nope. There we go, and see, I'm just gonna make all of these nice and equal. Great. And my grain line is parallel to that, that's perfect. I want my grain line to be parallel or the same as my fold line, right? So symmetry is nice. And fold out, because otherwise you're gonna have some weird grain lines. So I'm gonna select the mirror line and then the back. Okay, for some reason it copied over this word, but I believe otherwise this looks good and made this a grading point, but there we go. All right, so I think this is looking better. Okay, so now we can make that sleeve cap work. Let's see here. So I'm gonna select my draw tool, D. I'm gonna, no point connection, and I'm just gonna draw straight out like that. And that's gonna inform where that goes. And the same on this side. So I'm gonna intersect with the bicep and then just draw straight out. And now I can take this point. I'm just gonna follow my curve out. I will have to, actually, I'm gonna do this. We use the multi-move tool, select this. What do I want to do? Okay, I'm gonna measure, select that point, select this point. What's the difference? Y, 0.211. All right, so now I'm gonna move that much. Minus 0.211, nothing in the X area. Perfect. We do the same for the other side, and then that way I don't have to worry about them ending up on different, I don't have to refold 0.211. That's in the positive. Okay, cool. Now I can delete this line. And the same for this one. And now let's see how it looks when we fold it. I'm gonna fold that on the bicep point again. All right, we got a match, perfect. It looks symmetrical. And I'm seeing the asymmetry that I want, which is that the back is filled in here, but less full here. Perfect. Okay, now I'm gonna fold out. So I'm gonna select the fold line and the one that needs to return. And then I can just, for whatever reason, it likes to do that, and it likes to turn this into a non-curved point and split the line. Undo that. Great. Okay, so now let's see how our measurement is looking. What happened to our, oh, we lost it. Okay, I'll have to add it back. Sleeve, cap, and quantity 1. Okay, measurements. All right, sleeve cap 18.4, 19.7. All right, we have some work to do, but we are getting there. We're definitely getting there. So this is baby steps. Definite baby steps. All right, press save. Okay, so this is the time that I start to remember when I work on a garment, sometimes the other parts of it go by really fast, and I can spend like an hour on the armhole. I think I'm done, and then an hour goes by as I stare at the armhole shapes and I try to figure out how to make it all work, because it's a lot of trial and error, and sometimes you have to adjust specs and it just is like not what you think it's gonna be. So this is definitely one of those situations. So I just kind of want to call that out as this is one of the big challenges I have when I'm trying to set pricing for clients that I work with is, you know, sometimes I think something's going to be fast and then something like this can take me an extra hour. So it is a challenge. I'm trying to figure out some shortcut fast tricks to do this faster, but I don't really know that there is one. Sometimes you just got to work through it. So the one thing that I'm thinking, and now I'm pondering on this, I made my base size here 8'10", which is a bit unusual for me. Usually I'm working on a small, like a 4'6" or a 6'8" at biggest. So this is a bit bigger than I'm used to. So maybe some of the measurements I came up with are not quite right. So I could increase this to like 6.5, and that might help me a bit. I was also starting to wonder if 38, I think that's too small for the bust, but that's only gonna make my armhole bigger. Ah! So, okay, I'm gonna make this 19.5. I'm gonna turn it red. Whoops, not what I was wanting to do. Red. Okay, I'm gonna make this 6.5. And I'm gonna make this 6.25. So that means I need to come out 3/8 of the opening, an extra quarter there, and then I need to add a quarter here. Okay, so let's do it. Okay, so first we'll start with the armhole, and I worked so hard to get this nice armhole shape, and then here we go, just destroying it all. I forgot that in Toque I can't do all the points at once. In AccuMark, I do love that feature. You can move all your points all at once. You just stack them together. But alas, not here. So just 0.25, a quarter inch in the Y direction, that way. And I'm going to do that here too. 0.25 in the Y direction. And I guess it's creating some subtle waist shape. I'm just going to leave it. I'll see how that looks on the mannequin. And I'm going to just flip this and see how this looks here. I think this whole, this one session might just be about armholes. But at least, you know, if you are a beginning pattern maker or you're starting out and you're finding armholes confusing, let me tell you, armholes are just confusing. Maybe not confusing isn't the right word, but tricky, because not only do you want to get that fit right, you also want to allow for movement. And to me, movement means, one, getting that fit just right, but also allowing for front to back movement and also vertical movement. So that can really affect what you decide to do with things like sleeve cap height and armhole height and across front and back measurements. So, and then of course fabrication. Oy, there's a lot of things to think about. It's going to get rid of that points. I'm a point minimalist, if I haven't said that before. I think fewer points are always better. You don't like that? Okay. It's a little bit U-y. I don't love it. Maybe I like to see my knit armholes have a slight teardrop shape because as they get sewn, especially along curves, they get stretched out, and so they do become wide and flat, and you tend to get excesses in your lower front arm or your lower armholes on your knits because of that stretching and sewing. So as a result, I always like to have my armhole shape be a little bit less severe than maybe like what you're used to seeing in a traditional pattern making book with those nice French curves, because we are going to assume that it's going to grow. So, and I know usually assumptions are not good things, but I think as a pattern maker, sometimes you are sort of like a professional guess maker. And so I am hedging my bets that that's how this is going to react to any number of knit fabrications. Some knit fabrications might be more extreme, some might be less, and so then you can adjust from there. But as a baseline point, this is probably what I want to see. So now I can press save. We good to go there. It flips my piece back. Okay, so now I'm going to, all right, so I can say, yes, I did this. I didn't measure it though, so maybe I should do that. Did I measure any of these? Oh, I guess I did when I made, here. Well, I can show you how to measure it too. Let's do the draw function and alt, so 1 inch here. And when we're talking previous and next, if you're using the alt function, we're always moving in a clockwise direction. So next is this and previous is that. So if I want 1 inch away from this point, it's under the next column. Okay. Do I want to add a point? Sure. And then I'm going to go alt, and I want to make sure that from point, there's no X. There we go. Okay, now I want to do the same thing here. Next one. Yes, and alt, point, 0 in the X direction. Okay. And I'm going to call this bust measurement half. Okay, and this one the same. And actually, you could just choose the drop down. There we go. That way you get the exact same thing. Press save, report, measurements, bust, 19.5. Perfecto, so we did it. All right, what's next on our list? Okay, bicep, 6.5. It had been 6.25, so we're gonna add an extra quarter to the bicep and an extra 3/8 to the sleeve opening. You know what, maybe I might make it a quarter, because otherwise I'm gonna throw off this lovely shape here. V, and okay, 25. This time I'm just gonna add it at the bottom half, because last time I did it up above. And I can always change that once I see it, but just trying to. Okay, so I added a quarter. So that means now this is measuring 12, just about 13, so 6.5. And this is 6 1/8. So I'm just going to update that, 6.125 and 6.5. Perfect. And again, these could always change. And then sleeve length from shoulder. Let's see what it is right now. Again, this could change, but just out of curiosity. It is 7.362, so we have 7 3/8 right now. I might just keep it. Did I have this? Oh, that's the equation. Okay. Great. So this measurement is informing the sleeve length from center back neck, which is perfect. All right. Cool, cool, cool. So now I'm going to add these measurements down here: sleeve cap height, armhole total. These are all good pattern making measurements to know. And then as you're doing the fitting process and you're adjusting your pattern, then you can monitor that. Sometimes, you know, it's nice to have in your head, if you're working on a style throughout its development, knowing what the sleeve cap height was as you work through it, because you can see how that affects the fit. It's also nice if you have different styles. Let's say you have a t-shirt in several different fabrications, knowing the sleeve cap height can help you ensure that the general feel and fit of that garment is comparable. Measurements, like circumference measurements alone, to me, when people say, okay, this is my justification of why pattern makers are necessary. We all drink out of glasses every day. We drink cups of water, right? And we all have different shaped glasses. And those glasses still hold, let's say, 8 ounces of water or 12 ounces of water, but they can come in a bunch of different shapes. And so measurements alone, the point of me saying that is that measurement alone, knowing that it's 8 ounces or 12 ounces, it's only giving you half of the picture. So knowing that my bust is 19 and a half, sure, yes, that's a necessary thing, but it's not telling me the overall shape. So you're only getting half of the picture here. If you really want to understand more deeply the shape of your garment and why it's looking a certain way, having more of these internal measurements that you just have for yourself and you can kind of track as you're fitting the garment will really help you zone in on what pieces are affecting what, and it'll help your learning about pattern making. And even though now I feel like I still have things to learn, but I feel like I know a lot more than when I first started, I still keep track of these measurements because as I move along, I like to have them as reference points. Like, oh, that one had kind of a shorter cap and it looked like this. And so we're trying to emulate that style. So we're going to keep with the shorter cap. Okay. So I think we've got our measurements and we are almost ready to fit here, but wait. Still don't know if armhole, 19.99, so did get bigger. Bicep, we're still, sorry, not sleeve cap. We're still an inch smaller in our sleeve cap. All right, I'm gonna try raising the armhole because I think 5.5, which is like what we have right now, it's a pretty good cap height. I wouldn't wanna make it much bigger. It could be 5 3/4 on a medium, but all right, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna add 1/8 of an inch here, 0.125. Cool. Now that's 19. All right, then I'm gonna raise the armhole on the body and make that match. And this means that we're gonna have to adjust our armhole height. And of course, we'll have to see how this looks on a mannequin or in clo, but you know, this is just step one. All right, so let's do 0.25. So this is gonna reduce it about 1/2 inch. All right, so let's see how it's looking. Measurements, sleeve cap 19, armhole 19.5, woo! Okay, we're getting there. We are getting there. Okay, so right now I have 1/2 inch difference between my cap and my armhole. Fabulous. I think I'm good to go. I'm gonna press save and I'm going to export this as a DXF. And I know I don't have notches right now on my sleeve cap, but that's gonna be okay because maybe I should notch because I do want the stretch. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and notch and then, well, I don't know, I'm going back and forth because we're gonna fit it and we might make adjustments. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it as is. It's just clo, this isn't real life. And I can adjust the way it's sewn in the moment. All right, so I'm gonna export this as a DXF and then we are going to view this in clo on a ASTM mannequin. We'll do, because this is a medium size 8-10, we're gonna fit it on both the 8 and the 10. Look at that, make adjustments from there, and then we'll have a finished pattern, and that will be available to you guys if you would like to purchase it for your own practicing or whatever that is. So I'm gonna do the fitting part in my next video because we're already at the half-hour mark, and I like to keep these to a reasonable zone for you all. But if you have any questions about today's video, please leave me a comment below. Feel free to email me, whatever it is that you like to communicate. I'm open to it. And I hope to see you in my next video very soon to continue this process. All right, see ya.